Hi everybody, my name is Elektra and I'm here to talk to you about all things O-1 visa and artist visa and the arts in general. So can anybody be my employer? The answer is yes and no. So there's a lot of different forms of jobs and employment that you can include in your O-1. So let's go over them very quickly. So the first is an American individual, an American project, or an American company. Then you have an international individual, an international company, or an international project. So you have 6 different opportunities to prove that you're going to be working in the US. So obviously, if you have work coming from an international company, you're going to be physically doing the work in the US. That needs to be stated within the petition. But can your employer just be anybody? Like, let's say your friend is like, hey, yeah, of course, I'll sign the offer letter. That is not appropriate. That is not legal. That is not something that can happen unless your friend or unless the individual is distinguished. So even though there's 6 different types of jobs that you can have in your O-1, the commonality or the common thread in all of them is that the individual or the project or the organization or company must be distinguished. Now, what does distinguished mean? Unfortunately, the law does not provide us with a definition of what distinguished actually means. However, we can use our common knowledge, our common sense, and utilize different factors to prove the distinguished nature of an individual, an organization, and a project. So the answer is yes, you can have a multitude of jobs. However, those jobs must be distinguished or reputable in some way. Now, in order to assess whether a job is distinguished or reputable in some way, you have to look at the individual contract, right? There are different factors that will allow me to determine if something is distinguished, such as revenue, income, clientele, press, publications, etc. There are a number of different factors, and these factors allow me to prove that something or a project or someone is distinguished. So yes, you can have a multitude of jobs. You're not limited to just working or giving your artistic services to a company or an individual in the US. It can also be for an international company or an international project. But both the American-based work or the international-based work must be distinguished in some way. So not anybody can be your employer if they're not distinguished, but anybody can be your employer if they are distinguished. So a little play on words, but I hope this was helpful. Don't trip up on the distinguished nature of the actual project or the actual company. Just try. The biggest reason why people do not file their O-1s is not because of lack of distinguished companies, but because of lack of jobs. So if you're not out there networking, putting yourself out there, showing people that you're motivated to work, it's going to be very difficult for an employer or a company or a project or an individual to sign an agreement confirming that they want to work with you if they don't know you or don't know what you have to offer. So one of the biggest, I would say, privileges about living in the US and working in the US and studying in the US, most importantly, is the ability to network. It's something that is very, very developed here. And if you are an F1 student or if you are still in school, then you should think about networking with professors, networking with professionals, taking people out for coffee, seeing if you can pick their brain and ask them career advice. These are different steps and tools that can assist you in the search for your future employment. But no, not everybody can be your future employer, but everybody could potentially be your future employer if they are distinguished or reputable in some way. Hopefully this was helpful and clarified the standard that you must have when you are including different future employment within your O-1 petition.